Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my channel if you are brand new. My name is Danielle, and I am a full-time reseller on Poshmark, Mercari, and eBay. Today I'm super excited because I am going to be doing a follow-up video to my Jomar Wholesale Passes palette that I ordered in March of this year. Now, some of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, and some of you are probably very confused right now. But if you are confused, I would highly suggest you actually go watch the palette videos first. Actually, the first impressions of the palette and like the first palette video in the series is my most viewed video on my channel, which is extremely surprising and also scary because that video is extremely cringy, as well as all of the other ones in the palette series. So if you can get through the videos, I would definitely go watch those first just to have a little more insight and information into the palette. I do like hauls and stuff, so you'll actually know what came in the palette versus just watching this and knowing what the palette was, not knowing what's inside of it. But I would definitely go watch those if you can stand the cringe of those videos. I'm sorry, they're so bad. I can't redo them now. But I do want to go ahead and just jump right in because I don't want this video to be super long. But I want to go over first kind of what the palette was, where I got it, the price, all that kind of stuff. So I did order this palette from Jomar Wholesale. If you don't know what that is just a wholesale company that sells lots of boxes, pallets, all kinds of stuff to resellers or anyone else who wants it, I guess. And the original cost of the palette was $500 with a $250 shipping and handling charge. So a total of $750, and it was supposed to have between 400 and 500 pieces. That is how it was marketed. It was also marketed as a passes palette. This means that Jomar Wholesale themselves passed on the stuff in the palette and was not going to put it into their boxes. It was marketed as there could be damages. There is gems, so there's sellable stuff and there's non-sellable stuff. There will also be junk in the palette. That is how it was marketed to me. So I basically signed myself up for this palette. I knew exactly what I was buying. I was okay with it. I knew in the back of my mind there was a chance that I could literally lose all my money and make nothing. And then I also knew in the back of my mind that I could also make a very large profit. So I decided to take the chance, and we had to bid for it. So I won the bid, and it was $500 and then shipping. So that is kind of the gist of the palette. The original delivery date was on March 30th of this year. I actually didn't start listing anything for the palette till about mid-April. So just keep that in mind. There was a little bit of time where I was listing. Also, not everything was listed by mid-April. There was stuff being listed for quite a while this year. I was very bad at managing time and figuring that whole thing out, which we'll talk about later. We'll talk about what I regret and what I'd change next time. But yeah, just keep in mind there's been time between listings and all that stuff. Now I want to talk about what came in the palette and how much I've made thus far. Obviously, I did not count every single item that came in the palette, so I don't know exactly how many items, but I think it was more than the 500, the 400 to 500. I think it was more than 500 if I'm counting each individual item. Now if we're talking about items that were actually sellable, it was between 300 to 350 items. There are items that I wanted to sell that didn't end up selling. There are items that I'm still selling. Like, this palette is still ongoing, so this is just like a follow-up to tell you guys about my experience thus far. Maybe I will do another one as well, who knows. But there was so much stuff in this palette, and I definitely underestimated the time it would take. I underestimated the work it would take. That was a big mistake. And I definitely utilized Flip and ThreadUp. And then I also sold a bunch of stuff myself, and I also redonated a ton of stuff. The majority of the palette did get redonated. But I will say there were a ton of items in there that were in good condition, but just not worth my time to sell. So I, at some point, stopped caring about like $15 sales. I was just like, I don't have time to list items that are only $15. I just don't, like, it's a waste of my time. So I decided to redonate all of that as well. So even though those items were sellable, I didn't want to waste my time. I didn't want to waste like a Flip Pro seller's time. I didn't want to waste ThreadUp's time. Like, it just wasn't worth it for me. So I ended up redonating most of the palette. There were also a ton of items in the palette that did have flaws and damages. Some of them I did managed to fix. There were stains that I managed to get out. There was also a lot of stuff that I managed to not get out, and I ended up just redonating it. But again, I signed up for this palette, and I knew that there would be damages and stains and all that going into it, so I honestly wasn't bothered when I did open it and there was stuff with stains or damages or whatever, because I knew that's what I was getting. So from about mid-April to now, which is roughly about 8 months, I have sold between 125 and 150 items. Now, my numbers / item count is going to be a ballpark every time, just because it was very hard to keep track of everything, and I think I messed up my... Well, I know I messed up like my spreadsheets at some point, and it's just not, my numbers are not 100% accurate. They're a little higher than what I actually have because I was terrible at keeping track of everything. So I have sold between 125 and 150 items. I don't know exactly how many because I messed it up, but I have made between $2,000 and $2,250, and that is after site fees. That is pure profit. So that does not include Poshmark fees, Mercari fees, nothing. That is exactly how much I've made. That is profit. Now we can also subtract the $750 amount that I actually paid for the pallets, and that brings it down to $1,250 and $1,500 as what I've made in pure profit. And also keep in mind, it is only 8 months after I have even started listing the pallets, and I still have a lot of things to sell. So I've made this much, basically tripled my money at this point, and I've not even sold all the stuff that I have. So, in my opinion, I think that I did make a good decision investing in this palette and taking the risk with the palette, and I am happy that I took the risk, and I would 1000% not change one single thing about this entire experience. So even though I wouldn't change a thing about this whole experience I've had, there are a ton of things that I would do differently if I had the chance to go back, or if I did this all over again. So the number one thing that I would actually change is how I actually sorted the pallets. Now, I don't know if this would be different if I ordered like an actual pallet that was not considered a passive pallet, but I would not sort it this way at all. The way I started sorting the pallet was I sorted it into like categories. So I had jeans in a box, short sleeve shirts in a box, long sleeve shirts, like dress pants, like dresses. Everything was in its own box based off category. And how I should have done it was I should have done it based off sellable, non-sellable, and need to look it up. Because I was going through the palette and there was stuff that I pulled out that I knew right then and there, okay, I can sell this. I already know it's going to sell, like, take it upstairs. Then there was stuff that's like, okay, this is junk. I don't even need to take this anywhere, like, donate. And then there was stuff that's like, okay, this could be worth something. I'm not sure. I need to look it up. And those are the 3 categories I should have had instead, because it would have been much more efficient for me. Another thing I'm so mad at myself for doing is I kept on moving everything around, and I'd have to like resort it. So I was very like just unproductive in the whole aspect of things. I obviously sorted the pallet in my garage, because obviously it's a pallet. And I brought it upstairs in boxes and pieces, and I ended up bringing every single thing up the stairs when I 1000% should have not done that. I should have left the donate stuff in the garage and immediately donated it, because then I was like, oh, what if I missed something? And I would re-go through it when I literally would just waste my time, because there's nothing in the donate pile that I'm going to get out and try to sell now. Because, first of all, that's more time that I don't already have. And 2, I donated it in the first place for a reason. So it was just a big waste of time, moving around inventory a million times, re-going through it all. Like, I just wasted my time. And I would definitely not do that again. Like, I don't know what, looking back even now, I'm like, what was I even thinking? Why was I doing any of that? I just like, I don't know what I was thinking. And one last thing I would definitely not do again is I would not keep these little Forever 21, H&M, like 10 $5 items and attempt to sell them on Facebook Marketplace. I don't know why I think Facebook Marketplace was like getting big in the reselling community then, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna do this for my palette, and no, like, that was such a waste of time. Like, I also think a part of me was worried at the beginning that I wasn't actually going to make my money back, and I was a little concerned and scared, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make my money back. And I tried to like post these $8, $5 things on Facebook Marketplace and just wasted time. Like, wasted time. Honestly, I would have been just fine if I sold strictly the stuff that I knew would sell and look up the other stuff and like sort it into, okay, this has good comps, this doesn't have good comps. I still would have made a good profit, clearly, because I did still, without all the Facebook Marketplace stuff that I literally ended up donating anyways. So I wasted my time doing all of that. I think if I would have just donated that to begin with, I would have actually saved time in the end. So my final thoughts about this whole entire pallet experience and situation is that I would definitely not change anything about the experience, but obviously, like I just told you, there are some things that I would do differently if I did it again. And that is just how you learn. I mean, you learn these things by doing it. There's no one here running my business with me to tell me how to sort through a pallet and tell me how to do this. I didn't look up any videos. Like, I honestly just went into it like blinded and just like did what I thought was best. And obviously a few things I did were not best. And did it still work out for me? Yes. I still made money. Yes. Like, I'm very happy with the profit I've made thus far, and I'm still going to be making a profit. So overall, I'm still really happy with this experience and happy I had the experience. And I don't know if I'd order another pallet. Honestly, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Honestly. It's up in the air. It's up in the air. So obviously this pallet was not the most amazing pallet out there, but it also was not the worst pallet out there. I've seen way worse pallets and people paid more for them, which is just terrible. Like, I'm so glad that this actually turned out to be like a positive note at the end. And there was actually a ton of controversy on my first pallet video and some just negative comments that like didn't really bother me, just because I wanted y'all's opinions, and I knew some people honestly would not be happy with that pallet at all. And it's hard to look back at that first video, and there were times that I was concerned and like scared that was the worst decision ever. I should have never done it. And now I'm like, okay, I made a lot of money. I'm still making money. Like, it was a good decision. And I do think there are some people out there that still wouldn't want this pallet. Like, you have to have the right kind of business for this pallet. And personally, I sell like higher end things plus lower end things. So I kind of have an array of stuff that I sell. A higher end seller wouldn't want to get a pallet like this because there would be nothing in it that they would want to sell. Maybe like 2 things that they would want to sell. And it's just not for everybody. Like, only certain people are built to order pallets, sort through pallets, and do that. It was definitely a learning experience. I'll have to say that. I do also want to say that you get what you pay for. In this situation, a $750 pallet would look exactly like what I got. And I know I didn't share with you guys every single thing that I received in my pallet in the haul videos, but you can get like a clear picture of most of the stuff I got, and then with me sharing with the What's So Wednesday videos what has actually sold from the pallet, it also has given you more insight that way. And I know a lot of you haven't been here since the beginning, obviously, because I obviously have grown since then, but I will always include all the rest of the pallet sales in the What's So Wednesday videos as well. But overall, I am just extremely grateful to even have this experience, because I think a lot of resellers don't ever get to order a pallet in their entire business. And I'm really happy that I took the chance and I did it, and that it turned out to be a pretty good experience. And I feel like I would order a pallet again. Would it be a passes pallet? I don't know. I'd have to just see. It would depend on where I'm at in my business and what I want to do. But overall, I'm really happy with this experience, and I'm just really thankful that I got to have it and share it with all of you. And for anyone who can't order a pallet or doesn't want to take the chance, you can watch someone like me, who is just like you, running their own business at 23 years old, ordering a pallet, and think, oh, I can do it too. So now that we have come to the very end of this video, I don't know how long it is. It's probably long. You guys, I talk for a while. I try to make things short. It always ends up long. But I want to know y'all's opinion on the pallet after all of this. I've shared with you guys what I've made. I've shared with you guys about the pallet more in depth. I've posted a lot of videos on it. I want to know your final opinions. Obviously, I may do another video in the future because there is a ton of things I have to sell still. But just let me know your thoughts. Obviously, the first video did have a lot of negative comments and controversy. I welcome the controversy and negative comments. If you wouldn't want this palette, tell me down below. If you would be okay with it, tell me down below. I want to know all your thoughts. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this little palette follow-up video and you enjoyed watching the entire palette series. I know that it's been a while since I posted one, and I know that I've grown significantly since then, and I want to thank you guys so much for just supporting me and subscribing and watching my videos, because it really means a lot to me. And seeing how the first few palette videos are and how many subscribers I had then and then seeing now, it's just crazy to look back and see. And also watching the palette videos then and then watching this video now, where I'm just so much better on camera and confident and just everything. It just means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to hit that bell notification to be notified every time I post a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again next week.